Everyone, welcome to Midweek Gaming. I'm Nick inside of the comms, of course, Justin, providing audio commentary on his own brand of madness where applicable. Another week, another story. Quite a few this week, too. We have the flippin' state of play. We have the... Did I just swear in the beginning of our intro? Well, there goes monetization.
Oh,
And again, it's really kind of fun as swearing. Yeah, it's fine. Anyways, we have the state of play that came out, which has a bunch of new stuff, including Nioh 3 that got released, or Nioh 3 that got announced for next year, early, I think.
early.
But
Yeah,
the
I'm
demo
pretty sure it was early next year.
early next year. I think it's like February.
Mm.
The demo's out. So if you play the demo on your PS5 and you finish that demo, you actually get a helmet for the actual game itself. So if you play the game, you want to play the game, go play that demo. I am playing it right now. Actually, I am downloading it right now. So that's the thing. We also got more information on the 007 game that IO Interactive is making, which, oh, that'll be interesting. It's an origin story, apparently, which that'll be interesting. So that all happened. We have the whole business with Genshin. They had their I say new, trailer stuff come out for 5.7, 5.8, I think, run at this point. I've lost count, which is going to be about the Traveler, and it's going to lead us into Nodcry, and we're seeing Alice, which is funny because I literally watched the video saying we're never going to see Alice, and then the next trailer, we literally see Alice. So
And now we
somebody,
sue.
I guess somebody owes me a beer, but
Somebody
anyways.
give me my money.
That said, we only see her as like a kind of cartoony character, so 50-50.
But she is there though.
She is there. She is there. Maybe we'll see her physically. Show me the elf mommy. Sorry, I had to get my weave out for a second. But anyways, So that
has
happened.
a quota to fulfill.
I have a quote. I've got a running tab. But so that happened. But that's not what we're going to talk about. None of that we're going to talk about today, though I definitely want to. No, we are going to talk about the Switch 2, which came out 2 days ago? I think 2 days ago? Yesterday. I think it's, yesterday is the day of this recording.
Yesterday.
And, oh boy, things are actually pretty interesting. The stock has not completely dwindled into non-existence, though I'm pretty certain it's pretty close. Nintendo themselves, the head of Nintendo Canada, at least, has come out and said that they are hoping to meet everyone's demand, that they are preparing to basically keep everything on track so that everyone can actually get a Switch 2. It's not going to be like the Wii situation, as far as I remember hearing, where basically just everything dried up instantly and everyone had to wait for like forever and a day. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
Round of applause.
They kind of planned things ahead and like took note when PlayStation went and launched what was it, one of the PSs, and like it
PS5?
sold out. Yeah, PS5, and it sold out like immediately, and nobody got a PS5 for like an entire year.
Yeah, the whole business with scalpers and the chip shortage just exacerbated the problem to make it
Yeah.
worse. And
That was
Xbox
a
Series X
nightmare
had
and
the
a
same
half.
problem. So those two consoles just completely ate it. Some would say that that actually pushed back the fifth generation of consoles in totality as a result, which I think honestly is somewhat true. But yeah, it seems Nintendo has planned ahead. Specifically, like I said, Susan Panafeather. Hope I'm saying your name wrong or saying your name right. Excuse me. Sorry about that if I did.
Don't hurt me.
Says that there's been don't hurt me. Said there's been a tremendous outpouring of love and appreciation from Switch fans who either signed up to pre-order or the console, or waited dutifully in line across the country for the 12 a.m. ET. Canada, we go off the ET line. Spoke with the CBC. So this is again article from the CBC. If you want to look and read that article yourself, link in the description. Same for all the articles we're referencing today. Nintendo always looks for what the customer experience is going to be, and they build their systems around their games. She also says that they have also claimed they will do their best to keep up with demand, she says. So yeah, Nintendo is planning to not have, the consoles become a rarity like the PS5 and Series X were, which again is good to hear. In fact, I can speak from experience that some stores actually did not even take pre-orders or take walk-ins for buying consoles when it comes to online. So you cannot buy them online. I believe in some cases, such as Best Buy, I think EB Games, I believe, also did this as well, where you physically cannot even buy the consoles online. Excuse me, you're hearing my clock in the background. You physically have to go into the store and purchase them physically, so you cannot purchase them online. I believe what EB Games was actually doing, or I think it was Best Buy or EB Games, is what they would do is if you came in with a pre-order, they give you a ticket.
yeah, you had to actually physically go in order to ensure that they're actually going to people.
They'd give you a ticket, and once you got your console, they'd take the ticket, tear it up, and there's your console. No, no doubles, no triples, no nothing, unless you have someone else with you, I guess. But it's, again, definitely another precaution that's preventing us from what happened with PS5 and Xbox Series. Definitely there was some lessons learned there, because as I said before, that whole mess kind of pushed back, I think, the fifth generation of consoles, because we literally, as Justin said, went a year where a good chunk of people just didn't have them. I
Yeah.
was lucky enough to get a PS5 and Xbox Series fairly early on, specifically the PS5. The Xbox I got, like, I think a few months later through dubious means. I had to go through scalpers. Not proud of it.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, and that pushed everyone back because it's hard to kind of make hardware for a new console that nobody has. So, yeah. And we're kind of feeling the effects of that still to this day, where I've even heard articles and read, or heard videos and read articles with people literally saying that the PS6, which is theorized to come out like 2027, 2028, somewhere around there, possibly 2027 due to some delay stuff that happened, feels pretty soon, honestly, even though the console's been out from like 2020, which is like at that point 7 years. Because it doesn't
Yeah.
feel like we've even had the fifth generation yet. Because, like I said, there just hasn't really been much of a.
There hasn't been too much time with it when you really think about it. Like, sure, it's been out for a good amount of time, but overall, it just feels like not much
There's no
has been
stuff that's
done.
really been made for it, yeah.
Yeah.
It's like we don't have that console-defining games, right? Like the PS4 had the original Horizon, and I guess you could throw in Sekiro there as well, and a few other things here and there. PS3 had a whole cavalcade that I don't even bother me. PS2, same thing. Xbox had a similar shtick going for a little bit. We just haven't had that with the PS5 or Series X, and I think that is kind of making everyone be like, yeah, when the concept of the PS6 and Series, whatever in bloody balloons name that Xbox decides to call that. They went from like Xbox to Xbox Series to I don't even want to be their marketing team at this point because Lord knows naming that next console is going to be a pain. But anyways, I move on. Back to the Switch. I actually got lucky and through pure weirdness of fate managed to get my hands on a Switch 2 as well. Full disclosure, haven't played it yet. Even though I haven't pre-ordered one, I did manage to get one, like I said, though. Again, haven't pre-ordered it. God, my tongue isn't working today. Haven't had much sleep, so maybe you can tell. Haven't played it, though. I'm looking forward to it, though. I bought the base edition, which is, I believe, $620 some dollars, 40 some dollars, compared to the other version, which is I think like $690, which is with the actual physical game, or yeah, I think it's the physical
Yeah,
game.
the actual
for the
game.
Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the Mario Kart World game, I believe that comes with that.
Right,
version.
yeah. Granted, that game is going for $90, which that's a whole bloody mess in and of itself. The whole
that's
rating of
a
prices.
story and a half of its own, there, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, we kind of covered that earlier in our few other coverages of the Switch going into this. Suffice to say that nobody's particularly happy about the raising in price. Some say it's justified, some say it's nonsense. My whole this is it's a bit of both, if I'm being honest with you.
No
But again, I
matter
won't go
what,
into
it's
details.
a cascading event that's gonna happen, like entice other companies in other sections to go and do the same. So
Yeah, insert massive side eye to Activision. Yeah. Anyways. But yeah, that's all cavalcade won't get into for the sake of time for this video, but suffice to say it is what it is at this point, I suppose. I'm not proud of it, not happy about it, but it is what it is, I suppose. Hopefully it doesn't spread, but you know how this
at the end of the
is.
day, it's pay with your wallet.
Yeah, it's vote with your wallet, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, right? I don't really play the Mario games that much, especially Mario Kart. Never really been particularly into that. I've heard that that's saying that is sacrilegious in some circles, but I'm not. So I got the cheaper version. Plus, also, I don't want the more expensive version. So yeah, something we were actually talking about before the show, just on a kind of our personal opinions on it, because this episode is more about our personal take on not the console itself, because like I said, that'll be a whole other video, possibly when I get my hands on the thing physically, like when I start playing it. Maybe that'll be a whole other video. We'll see. But the kind of energy surrounding the PS, goodness,
the
the
Nintendo
actual
Switch.
Switch yeah, the Nintendo Switch 2's launch, how have people been reacting to it? What are our takes on everything, and kind of what's our like thoughts going on it, right? And the overall thoughts, like I said, is while they are keeping up with demand, it is an interesting kind of situation here. We were actually talking before the show about the fact that Justin himself, and I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth here, but so stop me when you want to,
Mhm.
is basically saying that, the Switch 2 is kind of weird because it doesn't really feel like that there are any real, like, beyond obviously the Nintendo or the Mario Kart World thing, they're not really selling any games that are designed for the Switch. You know how when the consoles come out, ladies and gentlemen, we always have that game that's more tech demo than it is game, or maybe it's a game in itself, depending on how you look at it. But it's designed to, move units. It's that thing you go out and buy the consoles for. Doesn't really feel like the Switch 2 has that beyond, like I said, Mario Kart World at the
Yeah,
moment.
like
So,
the biggest things that I've seen tracking around was the first one being like the standards of games being played in a certain ways now. Like the easiest example I can provide is like frames per second, like 60 frames per second now with the Switch 2. That is something that's kind of been standard for like even most consoles for a little while now. And people are talking about how like it's kind of weird how Nintendo is finally catching up with that kind of standard. And then there's also the clear fact of like when you really think about it, most of the lineups are games that have been out for a good little while now. So they're just touch ups, little things here and there. Some games have been given performance boosts that they desperately needed, some not so much, but they do anyways. So, yeah.
I mean, that is a fair point. Like I said, I mean, I remember reading one article, and again, all the articles will be referenced here. I'll try to put in the links down in the description.
Mhm.
Literally stated that the Switch 2 actually, when they play the Arkham Knight version of the Switch game, or the Switch version of the Arkham Knight game on the on the Switch 2, it actually solves a big, massive issue of the Switch 1 that was there, which resulted in that game being called literally the worst Switch port of them all. So
Yeah.
apparently that game is kind of fixed with the power of the Switch 2. I think the whole issue, though, when it comes back to the idea of like there's just not a lot of games, is actually something that I kind of said in response to Justin earlier, but off camera, which is this idea of like before the actual Switch 2 came out, there was mumblings in the industry by publishers and developers that if the Switch 2 comes out and it's backwards compatible, well, then there's just no way they're going to be able to compete with newer games because it's kind of that same issue we have with all kind of console generations, which again, maybe you could even argue was the reason we didn't have backwards compatibility until much more recent gens, in more recent years, is because if there was backwards compatibility, that entire previous library of games would basically swamp out anything new on the market. Who's going to want to Who's going to want to buy a new game, right? When you've got like
Mhm.
60, 70, 80 in the backlog that you haven't even touched yet.
Pretty
And
much.
so there was that idea that if there was backwards compatibility, there's just no way they're going to compete. And ultimately, there was a cry to basically make the Switch 2 non-backwards compatible. Obviously, that did not go through, and Switch and Nintendo themselves did come out and say, "Yeah, we're going to do backwards compatibility." And the fact they even put out a chart, and I think in more recent days, possibly months, that basically said a 99 or 98% of games on the Switch 1 are backwards compatible. They gave like a separate tier of like their own proprietary games and partner games, which is pretty much any game that's not made and probably owned by Nintendo specifically that are backwards compatible. It's pretty like 90% of the list, like 98, 99% of the list. Weirdly enough, the partner games eke them out more than the actual Nintendo owned games, which is kind of weird that Nintendo can't get more of their own games on the Switch 2 backwards compatible, but that's neither here nor there. The point is that because of the fact it's backwards compatible now, maybe that's the reason we're not seeing a lot of games designed for the Switch 2 as of yet. Like even when the Switch 2 was announced, right, when it was getting out that big, here's the release date, mark your calendars. I actually myself even commented. I don't think we did it. Maybe we did a video, maybe not. Where I think I myself was thinking, a lot of these games that are being revealed for Switch 2, they're just as Justin said, they're games that are already on previous consoles or other generations, or not other generations, other console types like the PS5, Xbox Series that are coming to Switch, or they're older games that are getting touched up for the Switch 2. There's no, in-house games that are being like, here's what you go buy the Switch 2 for. It's like Mario Kart World and the Donkey Kong Bonanza, whatever it's coming out. That's like I think coming out in a few weeks for Switch 2. That's pretty much it at the moment,
That
as far
those are
as
the
I'm aware.
two major hitters that Nintendo themselves created.
Yeah, everything else is either a partner game, and most of those games are also for the Switch One as well. So there's really nothing that's pushing the Switch Two.
Well,
So,
well,
like I said, maybe it
and
comes.
then there's
Mm,
Cyberpunk. Like, keep in mind, Cyberpunk has been out
yeah, I was
for a
getting to that.
number of years now. Like, that's the biggest push for them has been Cyberpunk coming to Switch 2.
Yeah, that's the whole thing I'll get into for a moment. But I think the kind of end result here is like I think the reason why we're not seeing any of those big console pushes is because Nintendo themselves probably had that same thought process that Justin had, and a lot of other people probably had, myself had to a certain point as well, where
Mm.
it's like, why bother making games to compete with the backlog of category games in the Switch One when we're gonna do backwards compatibility? We're just gonna shoot ourselves in the foot in terms of sales. So why bother?
Pretty
Those games
much.
are definitely coming, sure, but they're not going to be the thing that moves units. I mean, hell, in Japan, Nintendo is actually selling the Switch 2 at a loss at retailers for, in their own words, to promote mass adaptation. So it's not about, you know, games to move consoles. It's about the hardware itself to move the console itself. They're proud of the console and the hardware itself moving itself, not the games attached to it. I think that's kind of the story I'm trying to get with
Overall
you here.
push that they're trying to go for.
Yeah, it's like you buy the Switch 2 because it's the Switch 2. It's bigger, it's beefier, it's got all the things the Switch 1 never could have. That's why you buy the Switch 2, not because, Donkey Kong Country 93 comes with it. I don't know. Name your
Banzua,
poison.
whatever.
Whatever, right? On the topic of Cyberpunk. Oh dear God, where to begin? Cyberpunk is the
Yes.
black sheep of gaming to some degree even now, due to the fact that when it came out, oh dear God, bugs, so many bugs. They almost made Bethesda look good, almost.
Almost. For 5
Almost.
seconds.
For like 5 seconds. I mean, the bar for Bethesda is so far, I think they've literally gone past the planet and are now like approaching Mercury or something. But um, yeah. There are so
It's
many games on the Switch 1 that are just not able to play because it's not as powerful. And then the Switch 2 is like, oh, great, this is going to make people play them. They're going to great. It's going to be good. Like Hogwarts Legacy, right? Sorry to cut you off there,
no,
Justin.
no, you're
But
good. No, no, no.
like Hogwarts Legacy, right? It's a game that definitely feels like it deserves to be on the big boy consoles, if you know, pardon my saying. The PS5, the Series X. It's a beautiful game. It's coming to Switch. It is already on Switch for Switch 1, but it just feels like a game that deserves to be on more powerful hardware. Remember, the Switch 1 came out in 2017. That was before the whole RTX shtick. So that was before all that nonsense. Which came with the PS5s, and I'm presuming now some hybrid hodgepodge coming with the Switch 2. That was before that. And so I'm thinking, okay, that game probably doesn't run that well on the Switch 1, considering anyone who's played the Switch 1 knows that it's not the most powerful console. Honestly, it's a minor miracle they were able to pack all of that stuff in. People who took apart the Switch 1 literally say it's literally like a Russian nesting doll with how tightly packed it is. If you'll pardon me using that weird turn of phrase. So I'm thinking, okay, the Switch 2 will fix those issues. And then they're like, great news, everybody. Switch 2's getting Cyberpunk. It's like, oh, dear Lord, what are you trying to prove?
It's like, what are you doing here? Why?
It's like that
Why?
old meme, Can It Run Crisis? It's like they're trying to pull that. Can it run Cyberpunk?
Can it run
Um,
Doom? But if Doom
can
was
it,
like a really big game for some reason.
like, can your game console run Cyberpunk? I don't know. Yeah, we'll find out, I guess.
Can it?
Can it? Better yet, should it?
I don't know.
But we don't know. Nobody ever bothered to ask, much to everybody's collective chagrin. But it's here, or it will be here at some point. I think it might not be out yet, but it will be at some point. So yeah, we're gonna see how Cyberpunk runs on the Switch 2, and oh no. Anyone who knows when Cyberpunk first came out and played it on the old gen consoles, the PS4 and the series or the Xbox One, you know exactly
Now,
where I'm
to be
thinking this is
fair,
going.
much like Fallout 76, Cyberpunk has gotten better. It's gotten better over time. They've fixed a lot of
Absolutely.
the bugs. It's more playable. They've added more content. Like, just like 76, sure, launch, terrible, and things were not good. It's hard not to admit that. But at the same time, things have gotten better. So there's that. But still, at the end of the day, the statement stands is like, why is
It's a big game.
Yeah, it's a big game, but why is Cyberpunk the big flagship game that they're trying to set at right now?
I think, like I said, it comes back to that idea, at least in my personal opinion, is the idea of like, it's that whole shtick of can it run Crisis, or in this case, can it run Cyberpunk? Think about it, right?
No, it
Cyberpunk
makes
was the
sense.
black sheep that burned the PS4 and almost destroyed the series, not the series, the Xbox One, whatever life that thing still had left in it. To almost turn those things to slag, I imagine.
Yeah.
So, if the Switch 2 can run this game at least decently, or at the very least passably, then it's kind of maybe a mark of quality. Like I said before in this episode, the Switch 2 is kind of trying to sell itself on the merit of its power and it itself, not the games that are coming with it. So it's almost like they're using Cyberpunk is almost like a stress test game, being like a look what we can do kind of thing. At least that's
Look at
my
how
take.
far we can push this.
Yeah, look how far we can push this console without it turning to slag.
Yeah, it's not overheating and not turning into a red mess of goop on the floor.
Plastic.
So, yeah,
It's not turning into a bunch of plastic and metal on your floor.
it's not melted into my fingers and bones, so therefore it
Yet.
works.
If it works somehow. But yeah, that's kind of where I think the stands on the Switch 2. Like I said, we can go on about this all day, but I think that's kind of where we stand at the moment. At least in Canada, they've said that they're going to desperately. They are trying to keep up with demand. How effective that'll be, we will see. Kind of funny story I'll end it off with to kind of maybe prove the point that they are. I bought it literally a day and a half or so after it came out, and they were, from what I was told, selling pretty fast. So I literally went to a Best Buy Express and was like, "Hey, do you have the Switch 2?" And they're like, "Yeah, they're selling like hotcakes." And literally all of them were bought and sold for the most part, but I was able to snag like literally the last base model in that store. And literally as I'm coming out, I'm talking to somebody, and they're like, "Yeah, if you look online, they're all showed as gone." But like by the time I was in there, they were already shown as sold out online for the base model that I had just bought
The
moments
very last
before.
one.
Yeah, so basically before I was even going in there, they were already saying to people, "There's no more." So I got really lucky, or I don't know. As for when the shipments will
Fate
come in, we will
smiled upon me this day.
see with this day. So we will see, right? We will see.
Mhm.
I wish Nintendo all the best, and if you have a Switch 2, then I hope you enjoy it. If you don't have the Switch 2 and you're planning to get it, then good luck to you.
Needless to say, if you're a gamer, you are gaming and you are having fun, and that is the important part.
Yep, this has been a very big week in gaming, and I imagine it is probably going to go down in some history book as an interesting day, especially in Nintendo's history books. This has proven to be a very, very good day for them. So yeah, that's the episode. That's the show. Again, maybe we'll do a Switch 2 reveal if we're feeling like it. If I feel like it, I should say. I have the flipping unit. Justin does
I
the
do
Switch.
not. I do not. I will full-heartedly go and admit I am mostly a PC gamer, but that does not stop me from enjoying the Xbox.
I mean, well, okay.
Yes.
But it doesn't even just yes. So that's the episode. Hope you all enjoyed. Hope you all are hoping. Like I said, like, comment, subscribe. You know the drill at this point. Helps the algorithm, helps us grow, and we could really use the help. Get us up to 50, everybody. Hope you all enjoyed it. We'll see you all next week. Bye bye, everybody.